Hello and welcome back to my channel, everyone. Today I will be covering UFO sightings and alien encounters from the state of Nevada. Before I begin, please make sure to like and comment on this video as it really helps my channel out. You can also click the card on the top right to my playlist of all my paranormal videos to watch more like this one. Thank you to everyone who's been enjoying my videos. It really means a lot to me. So without further ado, let's get into it. Battle Mountain residents spot UFOs. From the Wells Progress, October 8, 1971. Residents of Battle Mountain last night spent several hours watching two colorful, unidentified flying objects, one south of the community and the other hovering in the dark sky to the north. Lander County Sheriff George Schwinn reported today he was notified of the twin phenomenon at about 9 p.m. and described lights of fairly intense brightness that flashed red, yellow, and green at regular intervals, at approximately the frequency of a rotating beacon. He said the two lights were similar, except the one to the north displayed a red tail. He said the two lights remained stationary at some distance above the horizon, with the one to the south generally over the area of the Duval copper mine, and the one to the north generally above the Midas area. After a couple of hours, the southern light moved some distance to the west, Sheriff Schwinn reported, and sometime later the northern light shifted eastward to take up a position that appeared to be approximately between Battle Mountain and Elko. The sheriff said he continued to watch the two flashing spots of light until about 11:30, when he went to bed with the lights still visible and flashing. Sheriff Schwinn said residents of the Battle Mountain area plan to be on the lookout again tonight to see if the twin lights reappear, and said he hopes to be able to locate someone with a telescope to provide a better view of the lights if they show again. The sheriff said he had no idea what the two lights could have been, and commented he would be interested in talking with anyone who might be able to explain the phenomenon. Space object dazzles Nevadans. From the Reno Gazette, July 2, 1974. Scientists this morning were investigating a particular display of light reported in the Monday night skies by residents of Nevada and its adjoining states. The 3 to 5 second occurrence was reported by persons in Reno, Tonopah, California, Utah, and Arizona in the hours following 10 p.m. Monday. Mrs. Penny Veal of Jacks Valley, south of Reno, said the falling object resembled an ice cream cone falling upside down out of the sky with green ice cream and a yellow trailing cone. I was sitting in bed after having a tooth pulled, and it scared the hell out of me, she said. I thought I was a screwball, but I started yelling and my husband came up the stairs. He said he saw a bright flash light up the valley, and I said, "Oh my God, what was that?" A scientist at Los Angeles Griffith Planetarium Observatory said he believed the falling object was a meteor. Wendell McDavid said scientists had not definitely identified it as such, but hoped to do so later today. Sightings outside Nevada were reported in Santa Barbara and Los Angeles, Kingman, Arizona, and St. George, Utah. Witnesses in Kingman and Tonopah reported the object falling to the north, while the Veals and Reno residents said it fell to the south. Spokesman for the Atomic Energy Commission in Las Vegas and Sandia's Tonopah test site said the object was not caused by their activities. "It wasn't us," said a Sandia spokesman from Albuquerque, New Mexico. "We're on a 4-day week and don't operate Mondays." The object was variously described as bigger than an average-sized car, like a plane on fire, or like a large shooting star. Nevada Highway Patrolman Don Hagblom saw the object while watching a movie at Sparks El Rancho Drive-In. "It was so close I thought it was kids playing with flares," Hagblom said. "It was coming straight down and there was no sound. It flared up real bright, and I saw it for 3 or 4 seconds. It was trailing lots of flame and sparks. Hagblom said because of his night work with NHP, he had seen similar things in the form of falling stars, but never so bright or so close. Griffith Observatory's Mick David said several reports included reference to an explosion. They were probably the outer shell of the object, burning away as it entered the Earth's atmosphere, he said. Reno investigator of unidentified flying objects Ed Dickman said several people called him to report the object. It started out as a gold glowing body, very large, descending from straight up and downward to the south of Reno, said Dickman, who saw it himself. I saw it about 5 seconds, and near the end it turned bright green. It had a large tail and there seemed to be sparks associated with it. It was coming down at a 45-degree angle, and I saw it only because I happened to be looking in that direction. Dickman said his first thought is that it was falling space debris, an explanation he said cannot be discounted. He said one caller from Sparks reported sighting the object falling in the skies to the south and called to ask what it was. Another Reno witness said he saw the object from his hillside home northwest of Reno. It was like a vertical, soundless flash of lightning over Huffaker Hills. I saw it out of the corner of my eye and listened for thunder. There was no sound. It was just a white streak in the clouds to the southeast. The flash lit the skies for a second, he said. Investigator warns it's time to take UFOs seriously. From the Reno Gazette, July 1st, 1974. The next time you spot a flying saucer in the Reno area, there is a man who wants to hear about it. Ed Dickman, a 43-year-old television repair shop owner, is an official investigator for the National Investigations Committee on Aerial Phenomena. We know they are out there. What we are trying to find out is what they want, he said today. Dickman gives a smirking admittance some people may consider his inquiries odd, but unidentified flying objects are no joke, he said. They have been cited by all walks of life, from senators to policemen, he said. Senator Barry Goldwater, Republican of Arizona, is on the board of governors of the 17-year-old organization, which has 3,000 members. Dickman said local police agencies accepted his UFO cards without a chuckle. They are willing to cooperate and are very serious and sober. Everyone seems to take UFOs seriously now, he says. He said one law enforcement officer in Truckee even said he saw a triangular, glowing object with 3 holes in it in 1968. Dickman said the officer and a patrolman saw the fast-flying object, and they offered to make out a report. Dickman said people have not always been so willing to admit sighting UFOs. Before the space age, people would not believe what their eyes were seeing, but now UFOs are a respectable subject. Dickman said, quoting a nationally recognized scientist who was an Air Force consultant for 20 years. The Air Force is the antagonist of the saucer watchers, according to Dickman. The Air Force says they do not think they exist, but it is a cover-up. They are afraid it will have a serious effect on the stock market or the public will panic. It would also upset a lot of religious beliefs, and that would cause turmoil. Even Dickman said he was skeptical of the saucer scene until he actually saw one in Lodi, California in 1956. It was called to my attention by an amateur astronomer friend of mine. He said there was something hovering over San Francisco. It was a cylindrical object hanging perpendicular over the city for 2 days. It was a shining color, and while I was watching it, I saw a silver speck go into the top of it and another come out to the bottom. Dickman said other residents saw the object, but few reported it. You are always going to get criticism when you believe in something that hasn't been proved. It wasn't too long ago, if you believed we could build a vehicle that could go to the moon, you were criticized. We are coming into a realm of space age. UFOs are more believable, and people are not as reluctant to disbelieve what they actually see, he said. But the Air Force is remaining tight-lipped, Dickman said, and threatens pilots with court-martial if they spout saucer stories. Dickman admits many reports are either crank calls or just weather balloons, aircrafts, or flashing lights. He said very few of the reports turn out to be hardcore sightings. When a good sighting is made, though, Dickman says he asks the observer the size, shape, how high, and how fast the object was going. The observer is even asked to draw a sketch of the UFO. We don't even need their name, and they are not going to be laughed at. They will be taken seriously, he said. The report is sent back to his organization's headquarters in Maryland, Dickman said. Saucers seen at atomic site. 5 report flying discs near Nevada test region. From the San Francisco Examiner, April 18, 1952. April 17th. Flying saucers in the area of the Nevada test site, where important new atomic tests are in progress, were reported today. An Air Force technical sergeant and 4 civilian workers at the Nellis Air Force Base near Las Vegas said they saw 18 circular objects flying an easterly course which carried them over or very close to the test site. Those who reported seeing the objects were Sergeant Orville Lewison, Rudy Tonser, sheet metal shop foreman and sheet metal shop workers R.K. Van Houten, Edward Gregory, and Charles Rullifison. The objects went by at 12:05 p.m. Van Houten saw them first and called the attention of the others to them. The men watched the saucers for about 30 seconds while they streaked across the sky in an easterly course north of Las Vegas and disappeared. The men estimated that the craft were 40,000 feet up and flying at a speed of at least 1,200 miles per hour. The objects flew in an irregular formation with one of them off to the right, moving with a zigzag motion. They left no smoke or vapor. Magnetic field energy eyed for future space fuel. From the Las Vegas Sun, June 21, 1979. American scientists are working on a theoretical space propulsion system with effects bearing striking similarities to phenomena surrounding 2 closely studied UFO encounters, a NASA engineer disclosed Tuesday. In a speech certain to generate considerable furor in the world's scientific community, Alan Holt revealed that government scientists and others have found data gathered during UFO investigations closely matches the physical effects generated by hydromagnetic fields that may vault future U.S. spacecraft across entire galaxies instantaneously. Holt urged the United States to step up its research into the esoteric technology that may help solve the riddle of unidentified flying objects. Speaking at a seminar during the AIAA-SAE-ASME Joint Propulsion Conference at the Sahara Hotel, Holt stressed that the National Aeronautics and Space Administration isn't officially conducting UFO research. But he said an investigative group, including NASA scientists and engineers, has conducted independent research into UFO close encounters in an attempt to develop technology that could provide a possible explanation for the mysterious events. If Holt's theory, and he emphasizes that it's only a theory, proves feasible, it would also be a revolutionary breakthrough in the search for a fuel to propel manned spacecraft through interstellar space. Currently, a Space Lab systems supervisor training future U.S. astronauts at NASA's Johnson Space Center in Houston, Holt developed and ran the solar physics training program for the Skylab Apollo telescope mount crew. During his recent thesis, Research in Space Science, Holt studied solar flares, which are caused by a merging of magnetic field lines that throws hot gases hundreds of thousands of miles into space despite the intense pull of the sun's gravity. Because of the inefficiency of chemical-based propulsion systems, Holt and other NASA scientists began looking into the possibility of using the energy of magnetic fields to propel manned vehicles across the immense distances of space. Holt designed a propulsion system for a saucer-shaped winged disc being studied by NASA. The system uses pulsating lasers or superconducting magnets to generate opposing magnetic fields. Up to this point, Holt said, the propulsion system is based on man's admittedly limited knowledge of hydromagnetics, or the study of the interaction of magnetism with electrically charged fluids. Beyond this, it's all theory. Assume for the moment that a fourth-dimensional space-time hyperspace exists, that it contains harmonics, or magnetic fields oscillating at a multiple of the artificially produced wave on the spacecraft, and that the unified field theory of physics is in effect at that distant point. If these conditions exist, you have a highway to the stars. Holt said the astronauts on the hypothetical spacecraft need merely use the pulsing lasers to create a hydromagnetic wave resonant with the harmonics at that distant space-time point, and zap, you are through hyperspace and across the galaxies. The future astronauts must be careful, he said, to use their galactic spacecraft's hydromagnetic waves to keep the ship from tuning in on harmonics at intermediate points, or they'll end up somewhere, and somewhen, else. During his research, Holt was struck by the remarkable similarities between the likely effects generated by his hypothetical space propulsion system and the actual effects recorded during 2 UFO encounters for which no earthly explanation has been given. In one case, a California mechanic named Bill Pecha, who was watching a late movie one night when his television set and air conditioner suddenly went off. He stepped outside his mobile home, and the hair on his head and arms stood up. He saw 3 large circular objects hovering nearby, 2 of them directly over Pacific Gas and Electric Company, 500,000-volt power lines. PG&E and the county sheriff later confirmed that a blackout occurred in the area, and tree leaves were scorched. In a Stanford, Kentucky case, a group of women drove a car through a bluish beam of light emanating from a UFO overhead. The auto's electrical system malfunctioned. One woman's watch hands moved rapidly, and all suffered burning sensations. Holt cited a number of other unsolved cases, including one in which the cassette tape of a woman who claimed to have been abducted by aliens was altered by some type of magnetic field. In addition, Holt said the glow around many reported UFO sightings would be consistent with the ionization around the type of magnetic field his theoretical propulsion system envisions. Holt drew no conclusions, urging only that the government launch a detailed study of solar flare magnetism, which could lead to new types of space propulsion. Local woman has sighting. From the Nevada Appeal, September 25, 1984. Gail Edwards was not watching an episode of V. She did not even have her TV on this morning. But Edwards says she saw something which could have been straight out of a science fiction show. A UFO. She was playing cards with her daughter about 3 a.m. when she says she noticed a brightly colored object hovering high above Mexican Dam east of Carson City. With her daughter, Edwards says she watched the red, blue, yellow, and green lights flash like the lights on a Christmas tree for about an hour. I thought it was an airplane flying over the mountain, but it did not move, Edwards said. I told my daughter, I think we have something to watch here. She called the Carson City Sheriff's Department, which sent 2 deputies to check the area. Edwards said the deputies watched the object for a while with them. The Sheriff's Department checked with the Fallon Air Force Base and Reno Flight Service to see if any aircraft or weather balloons were in the area this morning. The Reno Flight Service reported recording an object briefly on its radar this morning. The unidentified flying object reportedly headed toward Lake Tahoe, said a Sheriff's Department spokesman. As for Edwards, she finished her card game and went to bed. A mysterious pre-dawn visitor hovers above Sierra. From the Reno Gazette, January 28, 1976. The pre-dawn horizon west of Reno this morning had a mysterious visitor. Law enforcement officers in Nevada and California watched a frisky, multicolored light for 3 hours. But whether it was a spaceship, as some secretly hoped, or perhaps just a refracted star, never was determined. Whatever it was, it caused a lot of excitement. The Washoe County Sheriff's Department kept a chronological log beginning with this entry at 2:24 a.m. California Highway Patrol reports a large UFO hovering southwest of the city, can be clearly seen, very brilliant, varied colors, dirigible shaped. First seen as reported from Chico. FAA advised. 2 Nevada County, California Sheriff's officers, Sergeant Leroy Brombacher and Steve Bobbitt, saw the light moving southwest toward Truckee. They independently made similar drawings which depicted a flashing red and green object turning at right angles at a high rate of speed and a second stationary object north of the first. Washoe Sheriff's Deputy Jim Von Rosenberg at Incline Village saw the object drifting for about 40 minutes. He said it was low enough to illuminate the top of Slide Mountain. It was unbelievable. I just can't understand it. It was really interesting, he said. Donette Vonasek, a Nevada Highway Patrol dispatcher at Carson City, said, "It sat up in the sky like it was on a hill. It was a white light." She said she never has seen anything like it, except when she was younger when no one would believe her. She said, "It kind of twinkled and blinked. It moved downward, and as it spiraled down, it changed colors from kind of bluish green to yellowish orange. When it stopped, it went back to white. It moved in squares. It went across the sky to the south, then back to the north. It was really kind of eerie." She said neither the Reno International Airport nor Chico was able to get a reading on the light with radar. The dispatcher said the Highway Patrol at Chico notified the office at Truckee, which alerted her office. Washoe officers said the object was also seen by deputies at Carson City. One Washoe deputy examined the light from Hunter Lake and Plum Lane in Reno with binoculars. The radio log noted his description was of an object with red, white, and green, very brilliant lights. An entry at 4:16 a.m. says, "Object illuminating the ridge west of Washoe Lake, then moved southwest. Sightings and changes being confirmed from Peavine Mountain." It was reported climbing at extremely high rate of speed, at 4:30, then stabilizing at a very high altitude. The last entry had it fading at 4:53. At least 2 officers discounted the object as probably atmospheric phenomenon. Officers Bill Rupert and Bob Friddle of the California Highway Patrol at Truckee said they followed it with binoculars and decided it was something which makes the stars appear peculiar. Harold Cleforth, a meteorologist at Reno's Desert Research Institute, said he didn't see the object, but believes there could be many explanations. One could be a star refraction phenomenon resulting from a temperature inversion, he said. He doubts it was the aurora borealis, which he said is extremely rare in these latitudes, and which would appear as more of a glow than a single object. Two ground observers, pilot, sight UFO over Las Vegas. From the Las Vegas Sun, December 17, 1978. A large, apparently unidentified, disc-shaped object with glowing white lights hovered near McCarran International Airport Saturday before disappearing into the morning sky, according to 2 ground observers. A commercial airline pilot notified aircraft controllers that an unidentified flash of light had streaked past his airliner, a McCarran controller reported. Tower personnel scanned the sky trying to see the object to no avail. Radar indicated all was normal, said Controller Bob Turner. Fearing that a military jet may have strayed into McCarran airspace, controllers telephoned Nellis Air Force Base, but they said all their planes were down. The couple, who did not wish to be named, said they saw the object looking southeast at about 5:30 a.m. It was unusually large for a star. At first I thought it was a bright star or planet, the husband reported, but then I saw it move, like a leaf falling from a tree. The woman said she ran into the house and grabbed a pair of high-powered binoculars, and closer inspection revealed that it was a disc or saucer-shaped object hovering just below the clouds. It would occasionally bank from side to side, readily displaying its saucer-like appearance. It was covered with a series of white lights, the man said. They do agree on the frozen alien bodies. From the Reno Journal, November 13th, 1982. He ain't heavy, he's my reticulin. The lineup of speakers for the UFO convention this weekend at the Nevada State Fairgrounds reads like characters in an Isaac Asimov science fiction novel. One built a time machine in the backyard of his Laguna Beach home and converses with a female alien with long strawberry-colored hair. Another says the reticulans went to the U.S. government and angrily demanded the return of one of their flying saucers and the dead crew aboard. A third says documents show former FBI Director J. Edgar Hoover and former Secretary of State Henry Kissinger were involved in the worldwide conspiracy to keep government knowledge of UFOs a secret from the people of Earth. The convention will be held Saturday and Sunday, beginning at 10 a.m. and ending sometime late in the evening each day. It will feature speakers, film and slideshows, special events, and display booths with crystals, pyramids, books, and other items. The convention is open to the public. Admission is $15 per day or $25 for both days. From descriptions straight out of the convention's own press release, some of the speakers at the conference include Dr. Frank Elper, a space-age clairvoyant who channels various entities, including a being known as Cryon from the Quadrille 5 universe. Hal Wilcox, whose first contact with aliens was in 1961 when he met Zemkla from the planet Cello. Major Wayne Aho, a former intelligence operations officer who was grilled by the CIA after meeting aliens in the Mojave Desert. Dr. Frederick Bell, a NASA spacecraft checkout engineer who says he converses frequently with a slender space woman called Samjace from Pleiades. Are they crackpots? Nuts? People who have become so desperate in a world threatened by nuclear war and acid rain that they're hoping some folk in flying saucers will bail us out? No, said several of the speakers who had gathered Friday for a press conference. My own feeling is it doesn't really matter too much to me what other people believe, said Timothy G. Beckley, publisher of UFO Review, the world's only flying saucer newspaper. If they haven't had a sighting or encounter, or read all the literature on the thousands of incidents which have occurred, then they're only keeping themselves in the dark. Beckley said he used the Freedom of Information Act to obtain previously classified documents that show the military has the remains of downed UFOs and aliens. They have been seen flying circles around our fastest aircraft, Beckley said of UFOs. They are notarized memorandums from Hoover and Kissinger that show they knew about the remains of UFOs and their occupants that had crashed in the late 40s and early 50s. Beckley said governments throughout the world are keeping such proof secret because they fear it would cause chaos. They are withholding the information because they fear it would bring about the collapse of society. We feel the opposite, that it would open the world to invaluable new technology through information they would give us. Dr. Bell, who said he worked with NASA during the Saturn and Apollo programs, said when he also was in the Air Force, reports of UFOs routinely were put through a shredder and destroyed. When I was in the Air Force's early warning radar systems section, operators would have to fill out forms, and I saw many times flying saucers going at speeds up to 5,000 miles per hour, said Bell, who wears a wire pyramid on his head to detoxify his body. The radar operators would fill out reports, and after they were filled out, they would end up in the shredder. Bell removed the wire pyramid from his head and placed it over a newspaper reporter's cup of coffee. "This will remove the acidity," he said. "I'll give you the next cup of coffee without putting the pyramid over it, and you'll notice how much more bitter it is." The reporter sampled the second cup, but couldn't tell any difference. Bell plans to build his own flying saucer and said he already built and traveled in a time machine, but building officials in Laguna Beach made him dismantle the 2.5-story, 3-ton machine he had in his yard. Bell said he speaks with a spacewoman named Samjace from the planet Pleiades, which he credits with seeding Earth with people. Bell said he has ridden in their ships and they have told him Earth might destroy itself through ecological destruction, with a majority of the population dying by the year 2060. "Those who look to aliens for a way out are lost souls," said Bell. "We have to help ourselves first," he said. "They're looking to us to see if we can work as a group. If we can, then they'll join us and help us. If we can't, then they'll let us destroy ourselves." Some of the speakers at the convention also have companies that sell various space-related items, including pyramids that cleanse the body and help us reach a higher spiritual plane so we can communicate with aliens. Bell, who heads Global Innovators Incorporation in Cerritos, California, sells pyramids, vitamins, air cleaners, ionizers, and other products to cleanse environmentally polluted bodies. "In the early 70s, I used to take acid trips," said Bell. "Now it would just give me a headache. I finally learned to get my mental and physical state synthesized." Already synthesized and cleansed? Others at the convention are merely trying to sell people on the importance of heeding the warnings aliens have been sending us for years. Major Aho, the former intelligence operations officer who said he was questioned by the CIA after meeting with aliens in the Mojave Desert, said the aliens are trying to help us, but they have been ordered not to interfere with our culture or development. He cited an interruption of a televised broadcast in England that carried a warning from them. "There was a message purported to be from an alien being," said Aho. "The message was that we should give up our warlike activities and learn to live in peace and harmony." Aho said the next day, officials said the message was a hoax but didn't name the perpetrator. Robert Short, who the convention's press release hails as being widely known as the man who talks to space beings, said UFOs have crashed with occupants aboard during the 60s and early 70s in Europe, Mexico, New Mexico, and Arizona. Short said the reticulans came to the US government and demanded the return of their spacecraft and dead crew. "Not only did our government refuse, but they tried to capture them," he said. "Luckily, they got away. They went back to their council and discussed retribution against the US. After a very heated debate, they decided we were so childish they would leave us alone, and we'd bring about our own retribution. And we can see how that has come about." "Hogwash," shouts doubting scientists. The UFO convention being held at the Nevada State Fairgrounds this weekend is a charlatan event to bilk people out of their money, representatives for a group of scientists investigating UFOs said Friday. Virgil Staff and Paul C. Kearney of the Mutual UFO Network and Center for UFO Studies said they came to Reno to monitor the convention. Staff and Kearney said they represent an organization of legitimate scientists trying to solve the UFO phenomenon. "We take a very dim view of charlatan activities like this." Staff and Kearney said their organization does believe there are UFOs, and that the world governments have conspired to hide the remains of UFOs and aliens from the public. "That's the only thing we agree on," Kearney said of his organization and the people who hold UFO conventions like the one in Reno. But they're trying to sell their books, tapes, and newspapers full of wild, crazy stories. They're trying to bilk people out of their hard-earned money. Staff said such conventions and the people who hold them detract from attempts by scientists to obtain factual information about UFOs. One of the worst things about this type of affair is that it really turns off other scientific minds when it comes to considering the possibility of the UFO phenomenon, he said. Scientists involved in the Mutual UFO Network and Center for UFO Studies agree that aliens have visited our planet and the governments are conspiring to keep that information secret, said staff. The planet obviously is under surveillance, but for reasons totally unclear, he said. These other people have manipulated it for various reasons. Either they're sick or for monetary reasons. They're out to make a fast buck, Kearney added. They can't prove any of the stuff they claim. They have names for all these crazy planets, but it's a bunch of fictitious stuff made up in their own minds. Kearney and staff said their organization has documented approximately 300 instances in which people were abducted and studied by aliens. The excuse the government uses for keeping all this secret is that they're afraid people would panic, said Kearney. That's baloney. The real reason is that governments fear their political systems would be destroyed, he said. We've documented about 300 abductions, Kearney said, but it's different from these people who claim they've gone to Mars and Saturn. He cited a scientific study done on various photographs of alleged UFOs which showed they were phony. These other people are trying to sell naive people a bunch of garbage, he said. It does more damage to the legitimate scientific research being done than anything else. Curious about LV, UFO crewman grill musician. From the Las Vegas Sun, January 31st, 1976. A touring country and western musician says he was stopped 14 miles southwest of Las Vegas and questioned by two UFO crewmen who were curious about the activity in this resort mecca. His report and description of the UFO matched widely reported sightings Thursday evening throughout the Las Vegas Valley and reports 24 hours earlier from the Reno Lake Tahoe area. I think they learned more about me in 2 minutes than I could learn about anyone in a lifetime, the astounded singer said. When he first called the Sun, the musician asked his identity be kept secret. However, after he had talked to his manager and his manager contacted his attorney, he identified himself as Johnny Sands. He had feared publicity would hurt his career and swore the story was not a hoax. As he was driving, he discerned the descending object to take the form of a cigar, like the Goodyear blimp, only longer, with flashing lights on its bullet-shaped ends and a darker donut-like ring around the fuselage. Suddenly, his car stopped, and believing he was out of gasoline due to a broken gauge, he got out of the car to look into the gas tank. The object, described as a rusty orange color, hovered about 1,000 feet above the desert area, he said. His description of the craft matched numerous reports made by observers in scattered parts of the Las Vegas Valley who said at about 8:30 p.m. Thursday they saw a UFO cruise westward from the Spring Mountain Range. When it was over North Las Vegas, it veered sharply across Mount Charleston, the observers said. It was described as rust-colored, though it appeared to be reflecting the sun after sundown. As it got lower, I saw it wasn't an airplane, he said. He spotted 10-foot portholes and flashing lights on the ring around the craft, and said red and white lights were flashing from each end of the UFO. Something made him turn around from the hood of his car, and about 200 feet away he saw two men walking toward him. I was afraid they were going to pull some junk on me, he said, meaning he believed he was being targeted for a holdup. However, as they neared him, he saw they were wearing silver and black, luminous uniforms. He described them as about 5 feet 7 inches, in proportion not unlike a human being. Their eyes were squinted, complexion pale, and beside their jawbones, under their ears, they appeared to have gills. Their mouths were said to be very small. Their faces were hairless, he said, and had puggish noses. The one-piece uniforms were pleated at the calf and had a black stipple running from one shoulder to a white belt which appeared to be similar to patent leather. On their chest was an apparent circular emblem which was white with gold dots. He stood transfixed as they approached him. I was wanting to get in the car and lock the doors, he said. I wanted to go, but I couldn't. One of the men did all the talking. When he talked, it wasn't like he really talked, the musician said. He actually didn't talk out of his mouth. He was asked, "What are you doing here?" He said he did not want to reply, but was instructed to answer the question. For a reason undetermined by the musician, he replied in a broad sense, "I'm an entertainer." Next he was asked, "Why are all these people here?" Again he answered in a generality and explained Las Vegas is a tourist city. The alien asking the questions brushed his hand and asked, "What are your means of communication?" The singer said there are many forms of communication and wondered what specifically was meant. Again, he was instructed to just answer the question. I said, "I don't know what you mean," and they looked at each other for a few minutes. "I want you to come back," he was told, and was admonished not to tell anyone about the meeting. "Don't say anything about our meeting," he related. "We will be watching you. We will see you again." However, the manner in which this was said, he explained, was as if they were not expecting him to remain silent. They didn't mean any harm, he insisted. They walked away, he said, about 200 feet in the direction from which they came and then disappeared. His car started and he drove back to Las Vegas. "Until now, I never believed in flying saucers," he said. The 30-year-old family man said his career is starting to develop and he did not wish to be characterized as a crackpot. He stated he had not read the Lake Tahoe reports and had not yet seen Friday morning's Sun, which carried a local UFO story. He said he is from the Deep South and has been touring in the northeastern United States. "They kept looking at me like they were trying to figure me out," he said. "I think they learned more about me in 2 minutes than I could learn about anyone in a lifetime. They didn't act like they were worried about me. I was too scared to move." He explained he understood what they wanted to know and got the impression they were confused as to why all the people were inhabiting this spot in the desert. "Those 3 stupid questions they asked me told them a million things they wanted to know," he said. He indicated he wished the meeting hadn't happened. "I'll be worried about that for the next year." He told his story to the Office of Special Investigations at Nellis Air Force Base, a spokesman confirmed. However, the Air Force stopped UFO probes in December of 1969, the spokesman said. The Office of Special Investigations only handles internal criminal matters. The spokesman said the base's radar picking up nothing last night when various observers reported the UFO, but only the base's runway headings were being monitored. The singer said he reported the incident despite the warning, because he felt the armed forces should take an active role in investigating UFO sightings. A spokesman at McCarran's Tower said nothing out of the ordinary was noticed on the airport's sweeping surveillance radar, which covers a 55-mile radius from the surface to infinity. However, he said the radar is line of sight and can't see beyond hills. Reno residents observed strange object in the sky. From the Reno Gazette-Journal, February 16, 1996. A glowing flying object was seen over the downtown Reno area Thursday, several residents told police. Some said the object was black and glowed as if it had a halo around it or was flying inside of a bubble. At least 4 people stood for about an hour gazing into the sky near the Gold Dust Casino. Control tower workers at Reno Tahoe International Airport said radar showed no unexplained objects during the period of the reports, 5:30 to 6:30 p.m., police said. Charles Gilliam of Reno said he saw the object looking south from 2nd and Keystone. It appeared to be about 1,500 feet above the horizon before it moved upward and traveled west. It hovered in the same spot for about a half hour, then it jutted up and down and across the sky, he said. First Interstate Bank released balloons in the area just before the first person called in the strange object to police. But Jason Ruiz of Reno said what he saw was not balloons. It was black and it looked like it had a force field around it, he said. We didn't see any planes for a half hour, and it wasn't a helicopter. Groom Lake spotlight grows brighter. From the Las Vegas Review-Journal, October 2nd, 1994. In this year of Bobbitt, Roseanne, Tanya, and OJ, the news media have found an even more unlikely obsession near a parched lake bed deep in the southern Nevada desert, Area 51. Otherwise known as Dreamland, the Pig Farm, and the Box, the military's secret Groom Lake Air Base in Lincoln County has been featured in countless tabloids, science and aviation magazines, daily newspapers, network nightly news shows, TV documentaries, and even a live 2-hour Larry King television special that aired Saturday night. Most of the stories present allegations of a cover-up, speculating on why, since 1954, all levels and branches of government systematically have refused to acknowledge the existence of a base whose hangars, barracks, antennae, and runway have been observed from nearby ridges by thousands of curious gawkers. Some reports stick with historic, bureaucratic, or political angles. Among those are accounts of the early days of spy plane and other high-tech aviation testing, including the U-2 and SR-71 Blackbird, and the F-117A stealth fighter. More recently, former Area 51 workers have filed 2 lawsuits claiming they got sick after inhaling fumes from hazardous waste burned in open pits. Also making headlines has been the Air Force's controversial move to create a buffer zone around the base by grabbing 4,000 acres of prime vantage points on public land. Other stories raise issues of accountability. Some critics argue the government may be sinking black budget billions into testing aircraft that need not remain secret in this post-Cold War era. More often than not, however, the recent slew of reports has tended to ignore the less glamorous dry stuff and instead focus on the more sensational paranormal or supernatural questions surrounding Area 51. On the assumption that pulp reels in higher ratings than straight-laced reports about classified military projects, most pieces have highlighted theories that the base is a secret testing facility for UFO exploration and a hub of the government's involvement in extraterrestrial contact. After all, stories on alien abductions, flying saucers, and missing milk carton children held hostage in underground cells make for much more colorful quotes than diatribes by skeptical aviation experts and stodgy government watchdogs. Area 51 crazed media have discovered a star of sorts in physicist Bob Lazar, who claims to have worked at the base and seen 9 alien craft impounded there. Lazar's credibility was shaken after questions arose about his educational background and after he pleaded guilty in 1990 to a prostitution-related charge. In September, the now semi-reclusive Lazar again made headlines when the Tester Corporation released a plastic model UFO he designed as a likeness of one of the spaceships. The $25 kit instantly sold out at most Las Vegas hobby shops. We're getting tons of calls from people of all ages who have heard about it on TV and are dying to get their hands on it, said Pete Weckhorst, manager of Hobbytown USA, which has back-ordered several dozens of Lazar's kits. For the government to admit that they're hiding the aircraft Lazar designed, that would be our ultimate payoff, said Rob Moraim, producer of Patterns of Denial, an 8-minute segment on Area 51's alleged UFO link that aired Friday on Sightings, a TV magazine on the paranormal. Talkmeister King, the most recent jump on the Area 51 bandwagon by hosting a live Turner Network television program Saturday about UFO sightings near the base, further explained the allure of the subject. The fact is, a lot of people believe this flying saucer stuff. We want to get to the bottom of it, he said. After all, it's kind of pompous to assume we're the only civilization around. King, it should be noted, calls himself a UFO skeptic, but says in 1972 he experienced a close encounter while on a plane to Miami. His 2-hour show included taped interviews with astronomer Carl Sagan, former U.S. Senator Barry Goldwater, and Star Trek actor William Shatner, who offered first-hand insights from his fictional space voyages on the USS Enterprise, plus a live panel discussion that included several UFO theorists and Groom Lake gadfly and tour guide Glenn Campbell. King's caravan of pundits, producers, technicians, and makeup artists rolled into Rachel on Wednesday, bombarding the otherwise sleepy hamlet, some 25 miles north of Groom Lake, with 6 trailers, 2 satellite dishes, and miles of cable. "It's quite a scene. I don't think we've seen such commotion in I don't know how long," said Joe Travis, who plays a supporting role in the Area 51 saga as owner of Rachel's only roadhouse, Little A. Lee Inn, which has become over the years Nevada's most unlikely tourist destination. Some weekenders who had hiked to a ridge overlooking Groom Lake had expected to find King and his crew there. "They've been hyping this up for weeks, and aren't even where the action is. It's like doing coverage of Haiti from Florida," said Damon Lee of Las Vegas, likening the show to a Dean Martin celebrity roast rather than a real look at what was going on out there. King's producers chose Rachel rather than points closer to Groom Lake to avoid problems that have hindered sightseers and news teams working near the base. As recently as last week, 2 UFO hunters from Utah were charged with trespassing after wandering near the base's boundaries and avoiding signs reading, "Use of deadly force authorized." In 3 incidents since March, news crews from the New York Times, ABC News, and Los Angeles' KNBC-TV working on land adjacent to Area 51 had their film and videotapes confiscated after base security suspected them of violating a federal law that restricts photographing the facility. The sense of paranoia in the military is nothing short of incredible. Any idiot would know that there's nothing on the tapes that violated any secrets, said Chuck Henry, the KNBC TV reporter whose videotapes were seized in July. He was taping a segment that aimed to emphasize the irony of being able to see the base yet not photograph it. Some of the media's difficulties covering Area 51 are part of the base's attraction. "To me, the military compounds their own problems," King said. "It's the theater of the absurd. When they take tapes, they create their own Watergate and provoke the media to press the issue, asking, 'What are you afraid to show us? What kind of spaceships are you hiding?' But other journalists believe some of their colleagues are missing the real story. They dilute the story by dwelling on UFOs. It's frustrating that a very serious issue has become a hokey, tabloid kind of story," Henry said. Grace Bukowski, the National Military Land and Airspace Program Director for the Rural Alliance for Military Accountability, a national military watchdog organization, also has little patience for coverage of flying saucers at Area 51. "The real story at Groom Range is whether the people of the United States have lost control over the Pentagon and its funding of black military projects," she said. "I think the answer is yes. They're taking billions of taxpayers' dollars, and there's no accountability as far as I can see." No one from the Pentagon to Nellis Air Force Base will officially discuss what's really going on at Area 51. As for UFO sightings near the base, Nellis personnel still adhere to the standard Air Force policy and suggest callers report their encounters to their local police. "Obviously, there are things up there, and it turns out there are all kinds of reasons to explain them," said Nellis spokesman Major George Cilia. "But I'm not at liberty to discuss it, and to be honest, I don't know who is." Cigar UFO seen by Las Vegas observers. From the Las Vegas Sun, January 30th, 1976. Observers in widely scattered parts of the Las Vegas Valley Thursday night reported UFO sightings in the wake of similar reports 24 hours earlier in the Reno Lake Tahoe area. A cigar-shaped object, flying at extremely high altitude and accelerating to the point of invisibility, was reportedly seen by several persons as it crossed the Spring Mountain Range from east to west at 8:40 p.m. Observers on East Lake Mead Boulevard, near the base of Sunrise Mountain, said they too saw an oblong object approximately rust color as it cruised from south to north over the central portion of the valley. When it was over an area approximating the North Las Vegas Civic Center, the object veered sharply west and flew out of sight over Mount Charleston at speeds faster than any jet ever seen, they said. Observers who called the sun said they were able to determine color of the UFO by reflected sunlight. Although the sun had already set, the object was so high it still reflected sunlight, they said. UFO probe sought. Believers want to tell their tales to Congress. From the Las Vegas Review-Journal, May 11, 2001. Donald Phillips insists he saw 7 silver objects hover high above an Air Force encampment outside Las Vegas one night in September 1966. Phillips, a non-commissioned officer at the time, said he was asleep at 1 a.m. when he awoke to hear others talking about objects in the sky. He got up and for 10 minutes watched strange rectangular aircraft dart high overhead. The UFOs would dash across the sky and then come to a sudden halt. I thought it was absolutely beautiful, he said. I think they were communicating with their own brotherhood. 2 years earlier, outside a church in Glendale, California, Phillips said he was on his way to a night service when he spotted a hovering craft and could somehow see inside. He saw what he described as pilots who looked just like us, only a smaller version. Phillips, now a construction contractor in Glendale, swears he would tell the same stories to Congress under oath, if only someone on Capitol Hill would listen. He was one of 20 former military or government employees who described their contacts with UFOs at an unusual news conference Wednesday, organized by a group called the Disclosure Project Group. Director Stephen Greer said he wanted to pressure Congress to hold hearings about extraterrestrials, which would be the first such session since the House Science and Aeronautics Committee addressed the issue in 1968. The organization, which aims to promote the existence of aliens, pointed to Senator Robert Byrd, Democrat of West Virginia, as an ally in Congress who would take up the charge of investigating extraterrestrials. We have no record of a meeting with Greer, and he's not involved with the issue. There are a lot of things on his plate, said a Byrd staffer who refused to be identified. Senator Christopher Dodd, Democrat of Connecticut, also was offered as a proponent. His staff said it would check, but did not report back. Greer said the country could benefit from the study of extraterrestrials because he said they use new technologies that could solve the energy crisis. He also warned that weapons in space will cause other life forms to believe Earth is hostile. The participants told their stories during a 3-hour session. Most of their stories took place 40 to 50 years ago, and in some cases were secondhand. All ended their accounts by saying they would testify before Congress that they spoke the truth. Retired Navy Commander Graham Bethune, a pilot, said he saw an object with bright lights glow near Newfoundland in 1951. John Callahan, who once worked at the Federal Aviation Administration, said he had video and audio cassettes detailing a 1986 incident involving extraterrestrials and the military. Greer, who said he is a licensed emergency physician, said the panel was screened, and he believes they told the truth about their encounters. He admitted it was possible he could have been fooled. The group before you are very credible. We have done very serious interviewing, he said. Art Bell, who hosts a late-night radio show from Pahrump, said extraterrestrial sightings should be taken seriously. He saw a triangular craft floating about 150 feet above him one night in September of 1996 as he was driving in Pahrump. The craft seemed to defy gravity in 10 minutes, then darted toward Groom Lake, also known as Area 51, the classified Air Force base where UFO theorists say the government keeps evidence of flying saucers and aliens from outer space. There is a significant body of evidence, some of what you heard today, that is pretty damn credible, Bell said. Thank you for watching this episode. I hope you liked it. Which state should I cover next for UFO sightings? Let me know in the comments below. As always, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell to stay up to date with everything I post, and it also really helps my channel out. If you have your own scary story or close encounter to share, you can either send it in the comments, post on my subreddit, r/ihaveaspookystory, or send it to my Gmail, pinkpossiblystories@gmail.com. Maybe your story will be in a future video. Good night, sleep tight, and don't let the shadows bite.